thing about this movie is, even to this day, this is not a movie I watch a lot. I saw it recently for this, and it brought back a lot of memories. But it's not a movie I always revisit. I always, to this day, still confuse it or mix it up in a way with the Ghoulies.
Yes.
As far as what the C.H.U.D creatures look like, and even the tone. I always picture C.H.U.D being like more of a comedy, but this movie's not a comedy. This movie's played straight. And you guys mentioned the actors, Daniel Stern, John Hurd. Again, they're up and coming, but they're in there, right? And you're like, wow, like what the fuck are they doing in this movie? But as you're watching it, the film is played straight. And even the creatures themselves, they're not played for comedy at all. And so I always thought it was, and that's because I always mix it up with the Ghoulies. Maybe because they're green, I don't know. But I always found that amusing.
It's truly frightening.
This isn't a plan.
It's your home.
Oh man, I got this. Take one for me too, man. Yeah. Stop it.
We all cheer for big bottles of beer. I'm Ricky Van, aka Ricky Grimes. I am here with the Three Corners of Horror. It's another retro review. Of course, we got two special guests tonight. Two individuals that you are very familiar with if you keep up with Horror Fiend TV. First of all, I am going to throw it to Radar DeBoard. What's up, Radar DeBoard? How you doing, sir?
Pretty good, man. It's good to have the four horsemen together once again.
That's right. And of course, the four horsemen, we got the fourth corner, Lexi. What's up, Lexi? How you doing?
Hey, it's been a while, especially with Radar. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome back. And of course, we got the villain, the man, the myth, the legend, JR. What up, brother?
Hey man, how many times do we do a movie about things that have beautiful eyes? Ready for this one.
And of course, my brother from another mother, my beer brother. What up, Joe the psychologist? What's good, bro?
What's going on? Another retro one. 40 years. Shit.
Oh.
Yeah, it's 40 years.
Yes.
Some of y'all were probably not born, so fuck y'all.
Hey, I was like, I think I was 4. 3 or 4, depending on when it came out.
In this episode, we're going to be discussing 1984's C.H.U.D. Directed by Douglas Cheek, it stars John Hurd as George Cooper, Daniel Stern as Reverend Shepard, Christopher Curry as Captain Bosch, and Kim Greist as Lauren Daniels. A bizarre series of sudden disappearances on the streets of New York seems to point towards something unsavory living in the sewers.
We're going to take it back to 1984. Probably, like Joe mentioned, half this panel probably wasn't born yet. Well, all right, the three corners were, but I don't know about these other two. But we are going to be talking about the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers, C.H.U.D. All right. Whoever put this on the list, I'm assuming it was Joe because JR. I thought Joe was the retro guy.
Whoa.
Nope.
C.H.U.D, man.
The funny thing is, when I found out about C.H.U.D, no surprise that Radar is here because when I think of a movie like C.H.U.D, I think of someone like my boy Radar because we got kind of like the same mindset when it comes to these creature features from the
That
80s.
is true. We have like a really similar taste on like
Yes, yeah.
all these 80s films.
I mean, I don't watch that gingerbread. What's that shit called?
The Ginger Dead Man? Well,
yeah, versus
no
the
one needs
Bong
to.
guy, whatever that shit that. But yeah, let's give it a start. We're gonna start with Lexi. Lexi, 1984. This is going to be quite interesting because, if I'm not mistaken, this is a new film for you. Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
This is going to be very
this was
interesting.
a first watch for me. Like Joe said, I was not born when this film came out. However, I fucking loved this film. And let me touch up back onto the 90s when I was born. I grew up on Home Alone. So when I saw John Hurd and Daniel Stern was in this, like all the feels came and I was tuned in. However, the story was really awesome. The plot was awesome. The government being involved, the conspiracy theory with Daniel Stern. If you know me in real life, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. At least that's what I've been labeled. But I love the whole thing with the government being involved, and I love the whole aspect of them all working together as the police officer, I forget his name, Daniel
Dr.
Stern,
Bosch.
and kept Bosch, that's right. And I kept saying his name all day today. Don't forget his name. Don't forget his name, Bosch. But yes, I loved that they eventually ended up working together to go against C.H.U.D, the, what is it, cannibalistic humanoid underground
dwellers.
Yes. Yes, I said it right? But I fucking loved it for being, what was it, 1984, if I remember.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I have to, from being in the 90s, I have to take away from the fact CGI was born, you know? So for me to go back before my time and see what you guys had to, you know, work with, I mean, I loved it. And the monster was creepy and scary and gross, and in the sewers, like, that's disgusting. So I really loved it. I enjoyed it.
Radar, what I want to know is, because I know you caught this a little later as well. When did you first see this and where?
Yeah, so it's funny because, I mean, what the hell is C.H.U.D? Like, C.H.U.D is such a weird name that it doesn't get brought up ever.
C.H.U.D.
Yeah, C.H.U.D. What is a C.H.U.D? Like, if you said C.H.U.D, I'd go like, that's a weird sex move. Don't bring that around me or something. But so I didn't know C.H.U.D even existed until about like 5 or 6 years ago. And I learned about C.H.U.D because I was listening to a playlist of just like horror songs from like horror movies. And Bud the C.H.U.D came on, which from the second C.H.U.D movie, and that theme slaps. And so I was like, well, this song rocks. Let me find out what the hell a C.H.U.D is real fast. And so then I had to watch the movie. So like I've only known about this movie for like 5 or 6 years. But like the first time I watched it, I was like, this is wild that like John Hurd, all these other like real actors and actresses are in this horror movie. And it feels like they got duped into doing this film. like it's like you would never see people, especially in the 80s, because like, you know, horror was popular, but it was never for like real actors to go and do it. And it feels like they just like their manager was like, hey, I owe my nephew a favor. He wrote the script for this. You got to do it. But the film is fantastic.
Joe the psychologist. Talk to me, brother. You already know.
Yeah, so this was I can tell you right now, this was not my pick. When I did my influentials with Angel and discussed Gremlins, and you know, it was the first horror movie that it was the first horror movie that JR and I were introduced to. The cover is a little bit misleading. So when we're at the video store and you see the cover to C.H.U.D, JR goes, let's get that one. And we didn't just get that one. We got part 2 also. When we used to rent them, we would get the sequels. Nice. So this was a total JR pick back in the day. And when he mentioned it, I totally got it, because I wouldn't, honestly, I would have ran into it eventually, but had it not been for what I think Junior got duped on the cover, looking kind of like Gremlins, you know, like, oh, let's get that one. And yeah, listen, when I was rewatching it, I totally forgot half the people that were in here. It has been, I mean, I've been with Adam for 21 years, so it's been well over 21 years since I've seen this. And John Goodman, you know, even though he's very small little part in there. And there was somebody else. Oh,
Vic Palacios.
Chandler's
Vic Palacios was in it too.
Well, there was the crazy guy that I've seen in another one. But there was a guy that was in Harlem Nights that was the money smuggler for them. But this had a whole lot of people, like Radar said, and it was just, especially Daniel Stern, and I could not stop looking at his tooth. That's like the one thing. I don't know. I never noticed it in all the other movies if it's been there, but for some reason that one tooth in the front kind of distracted me through it. But it was great to rewatch again. I liked it.
I'm very happy you mentioned renting this on VHS, because this is the type of film that I remember this is the type of film you would go into the video store and you see that cover. Thinking back, it reminds you of a time when you actually went into like a video rental store. I'm not talking about Blockbuster. I'm talking pre-Blockbuster, like the mom and pop
little
stores.
Mom and pops.
Yeah. You would see films like the VHS covers, like C.H.U.D, you know, and like I know how GR saw the cover. That would have definitely drew me in as well, because that's what I remember C.H.U.D by, the fucking cover. JR, when you walked into that, what was your feeling like? Looking back at it now, like, what do you think about it?
I mean, you got something coming out of the sewer. What better curiosity than that? Like, what the fuck?
Pre-Ninja Turtles,
yes, pre-Ninja Turtles. And
I fought the Ninja Turtles when I saw the hands come out in the beginning of the film. I was like, Ninja Turtles.
C.H.U.D did it first.
And to top it off, this was a couple years after the movie Alligator, which was about, you know, once again, a folklore that has to do with the undergrounds of New York. And that's what this was. This was basically the folklore of, you know, we've always heard the tales of a city underneath a city of people just living there. Now, it's also been an inspirational film because one of the, I mean, it's a good found footage in a way, but it's a controversial one as far as the way people like it or hate it. But the tunnel is basically the tunnel gets there's just so many movies that are based on people living underground. This one just added the whole flavor of, you know, the government conspiracy. So what I liked about this one, even to this day, is the fact you have a horror story, but you have a story above it, and they basically interconnect when needed. So, you know, anybody watching this film be like, "Oh, I wanted more monsters." Understand, when they come out, they came at the right time when they needed to come out. Because if you would have had them coming out every single time, you would have lost the effect of this film. And I know one scene that Rick likes a lot, but he wish he was been inside the whole time, is when John Goodman dies in the diner, because you kind of want to see what the hell happened. Yeah. Like, oh, there's only blood all over the place. And I liked that, but it's like
they dragged the bodies out, which was cool.
Yes,
it gives you an insight into like their, you know, the way they handle their business. So to speak.
And it also gave you this, and at the same time, it gave you this like almost like a cult feeling to it, because when AJ basically stumbles upon them, they're all just standing there looking around and stuff. But and think about it, AJ, Daniel Stern is the hero. Who the fuck would thought this dude would have been the hero of the movie? This dude broke into a kid's home a couple years later.
Even to this day, this is not a movie I watch a lot. I saw it recently for this, and it brought back a lot of memories, but it's not a movie I always revisit. I always, to this day, still confuse it or mix it up in a way with the Ghoulies.
Yes.
As far as what the C.H.U.D creatures look like, and even the tone. I always picture C.H.U.D being like more of a comedy, but this movie's not a comedy. This movie's played straight. And you guys mentioned the actors, Daniel Stern, John Hurd. Again, they're up and coming, but they're in there, right? And you're like, wow, like what the fuck are they doing in this movie? But as you're watching it, the film is played straight. And even the creatures themselves, they're not played for comedy at all. And so I always thought it was, and that's because I always mix it up with the Ghoulies. Maybe because they're green, I don't know. But I always found that amusing.
They're both slimy.
Yeah,
the creatures are both slimy looking.
yeah, but let's talk about these creatures. Radar DeBoard. Let me ask you, Radar. What did you think about the cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers? They do it for you, bro?
Man, there's something just that hits right about 80s practical effects. And like C.H.U.D is like a perfect example of that. Because as I kind of mentioned just a few seconds ago, they all look so damn slimy and slick and kind of their design's so interesting. You know, it's it's like if a bald cancer patient was just roaming around in the sewers over an extended period of time, and that's what they turned into. It's just like the perfect kind of creature design. Like, and it's like the name, it's like, how the hell did you come up with that? Who came up with this? I think the glowing eyes type thing is just also great, brilliant. Every part of it across the board is fantastic. Like even their like little weird teeth, they're like so fucking thin and tiny too. Yeah. It's just off-putting. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's perfect. They're the perfect homeless people munchers.
Man, they were freaking awesome. I mean, who likes going down into the sewer, right? So they're just nasty. They're icky. Like Radar said, their teeth are mangled. Their eyes are glowy. And they're just like close up on mosquito faces is what I kept thinking earlier. I don't know why, but it's like, I'm from Florida, so, you know. Yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of. But the fact, like I said before, I was born into the CGI world or beginning of CGI world. So to go back, like I've been a horror fan, or at least I thought I was until I met you guys. And so for you guys to bring me back into 1984 on a film that I've never seen, I fucking dug it.
These things were actually respectful, though, if you think about it, because they broke into this lady's apartment, but before they broke into his apartment, they had knocked on the door a couple times. So they knocked on the door a couple times.
That kid was dying to open that door. He couldn't.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, they were warning the mom, look, your kid's next to the door, should be next to the door. You know, then every time they opened the sewer, you know, the covers, they always put them back. You know, there was the guy who was talking on the phone, you know, telling, hey, we missed the train. They left the kid alone. They took him because he was a bad dad. I mean, so there was, and, you know, they killed the lady at the beginning and they left the dog for a while. I mean, I think the dog eventually got it later on because I think
they showed the dog, man.
But but you didn't see it at the beginning, like, all right, at least they left the dog alone.
Well, they didn't eat it.
Yeah, and the one scene when you first see, like, the first Chud, the reveal, I'm sorry, like going back to the first thing I thought is they're looking over this dead body, and I just wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to go, "You are one ugly motherfucker." That's what I thought they were looking down on it. But yeah, I love the look of them because each of them look different.
After I watched this movie with JR, I don't go around manholes. Period. I mean, I avoid sewers because of Pennywise. And I avoid manholes because of Chud. I know they're not real, but however, they came out from, you know, the manholes.
What's scary is though, Joe, they also break through like if there's like a something compromised, like a wall or even the floor, they could burst out of it.
Well, they have strength.
Yeah.
But the acronym for Chud was for Contaminated Hazardous Urban Disposal. And what the storyline was underlying is the fact that they chose certain sections of New York City and they were disposing these contaminated, basically nuclear shit. So when you saw the Chud, like sitting there, like JR said, like in a cult, that's like the waste just all coming out, which is why then I realized that's why their eyes are glowing. It's fucking nuclear poisoning or whatever you want to call it. Because I never thought, I'm like, why were their eyes glowing? Well, now that I'm watching it much, much older and understand what they're talking about, I'm like, all right, I get it. This is why. It's all mutations. And the reason they started coming up is because, well, some of them started becoming Chud. And then once they became Chud, they started eating the other ones that were not Chuds. So what else is left? Well, we're going to have to go upstairs.
Like I mentioned before, I like when they would just show their hands, and they look good for the time, you know, opening the manholes. The scene with somebody mentioned with the father was with his this granddaughter, not the grandfather with the granddaughter inside the phone booth. That reminded me so much of Assault on Precinct 13, when the dad was in the phone booth, you know, ignoring his daughter. And that movie, his daughter was killed though. But in here, his daughter, you know, the granddaughter's looking up, and you see the hands already. And all of a sudden, she looks up, she gets his attention. He's like, "What?" Ah! And then the things are going. Dude, I was high as hell watching this. I almost fell on the floor, bro. I was like, "What the fuck?" Oh, but the one thing that Chud, once they started showing them near the end, like, you know, when they keep walking like towards the camera, I kept thinking, Joe, it's funny because I thought of our episode of the comic book horror show. I was like, this looks like the fucking thing. Wes Craven's Swamp Thing. That's what it looked like to me. Like the way the show, like the you know, the traps. And yes.
Yeah. No,
I'm like, this is like fucking Swamp Thing. What the fuck am I watching here? Whenever they show them like far and real close, you can tell it's just no makeup. It's just guys in rubber masks, big baggy clothes, and they're all going like this. And I'm like, oh, that was bad. I mean, what is this? I'm like, oh, I don't remember this being this bad. But that's because later, when they really get to show them, oh, okay, here we go. Now this is what I remember. But yeah, those scenes, it's like even like Dawn of the Dead. Like when they got the far away zombies, that don't hold up at all either. You could tell the guy's a rubber mask. Day of the Dead even worse, which is a newer movie. So yeah, I that's one thing I hate background characters. Like they just take you out because you could tell there's background actors, extras with like flimsy masks. That's the only thing I was like, it doesn't hold up in 2024. But I love how you mentioned. I think GR said it or Joe. I'm sorry, one of you guys said it. You guys confused me. Anyway. They're different. No two Chuds are alike, which is pretty cool.
JR said that actually.
JR, my man. All right. Well, let's close this one out. Lexi, I'm gonna throw to you first. Give us your retro review score and anything else you want to add to the conversation.
I definitely give it a good 4. I enjoyed it. Coming from the 90s and going back, I have to respect, where horror starts, and I enjoyed it. Like I said, I like the storyline. A few scenes. I'm glad you mentioned the scene where they were all in the worship under the sewer, and Daniel Stern. He made me so nervous, and then when he kicked the rocks, I was like, "Oh shit, he's dead."
Yeah.
And I'm glad he didn't die.
Typical Hollywood, right there. Oh, great.
Right. But you're right. That was one of the scenes that bothered me because they were all in like black shirts and had the face masks, basically.
Oh, they look fake. They look like guys in masks.
Yes, fake as fuck. And it reminded me of like Men in Black when the little long creatures were wearing the suits for Will Smith and the other guy. But like that's what it reminded me. I was like, oh man, they're all wearing the same thing. I would have liked it better if they rubbed it up a little bit, like. Oh, the lady who in the beginning of the movie who was walking the dog, she's, that Chud is still in the dress. Victor, his leg is bit off. So it's like, put on different clothing. Maybe, that scene would have sold me a little better.
Yeah, they all wore the same shit. You're right about that. I didn't mention
they
it.
All wore the same thing.
Yeah. Props for you guys for picking that up.
Yo, Raider, let me ask you, brother. You mentioned Wilson. I want to ask you this. When they asked him what the hell is Chud, and he's like cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Do you think he pulled that out of his ass at that moment, or they actually always had that name? That's not what it stood for, as Joe mentioned before. So
right, I feel like let's just talk about how they used the same acronym for 2 completely different things, and it's like so stupid, but in a good way. Just the perfect amount of stupid from the screenwriter.
But he was the first person to say cannibalistic. He didn't say the chemical hazard one. He
was covering it up. That's why.
Yeah. Because it's what it was. What was on the labels of all the stuff that was in the sewers.
That's what Chud really was.
Right.
That's what
paper.
Chud really stood for. But for the paperwork was cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Which it's wild. It's so funny that would be like what the government's like. More inclined to go with like, yep, there's just cannibals in the sewer, folks, as opposed to, oh no, we would never dump toxic waste. That would be bad. But cannibals, that's okay.
Yep.
That's fine. But like, I feel like this movie's, it took a look at all the like cheesy sort of like over the top horror flicks at the time and went, we can do this the right way. And then they just stumbled a little bit. It didn't quite live up to it because they spent a little too much time not on the Chuds. I need more Chud. Lean into the Chud.
I agree.
I have heard the word Chud more times in my life in this 30 minutes than ever before. But too much Chud, mate.
And we ain't done.
Oh my god, there's more Chud to come. But it's a good film. I love those monsters. Like I said, it kind of stumbles in a few places, but that's all right. I would give it 3.5 Chud boys out of 5.
And the whole time he's down there, he's telling dude, why do you have a gun? Why do you a gun he never used and shit? Because the minute I hear something, it was the most. I'm sorry,
Murphy. Let's talk about Beto Murphy.
Dude, if I'm down there with him and this dude's freaking me out the whole time, I hear some, and he does like the whole cop thing. I'm like, oh my god. Then he gets pulled and he gets killed.
Murphy, what happened to Murphy, Raider? I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm glad you brought him up, GR, because Murphy was a character I actually liked. I
wanted more of him, but it's
me too.
It felt like Cooper. Cooper's character was totally wasted because what was the point of this dude? And then when we get that scene with Wilson where he's discussing his plan. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna put gas in the sewer line, and we'll get them out. And but there might be explosion. Just Soho, just this one area. just Soho.
Soho. What does Soho do to anybody, man?
Yeah.
And he had the most serious face when he said, "This Soho."
I mean, Peter Parker lives at Soho. But.
Dude, it's funny because when you looked at the other two, they're like, look at them. He was looking serious as shit. But it's like, you had the certain comedic scenes in this which have you done. I'm sorry, the scene where he's knocking on the woman's door. I mean, you figure you have all these other apartments on the first level. Now, I'm just going to go up maybe a floor or two just to knock on this one door, which is, I mean, for me, it was, I mean, I know with horror, you got to suspend, disbelief, but that was hard to believe that out of all these doors, that's the one door he went.
Are you talking about Cooper's wife?
Yeah.
Don't forget, he also knocked on the door of the other character we were introduced to. I think Francine, her name was, or her son Justice. So the two characters we knew of, those are the only two doors they knocked on.
Yeah, it's a whole apartment complex.
It must have smelled really nice or something.
And not for nothing, Bosch, I mean, dude, your wife is missing.
Thank you. Oh my God, that was in my notes. Thank you. Go ahead, Jared.
And he's the most relaxed person with a missing wife. The only time he says, "Hey, do me a favor, put on an APB on blah 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 blah." That's your wife, yes. Put the APB on.
And I'm sorry, but
I'm done.
hold on 1 second. So the part with Victor, where he kind of looks like half vampire and half, because the way his teeth was coming in, once you're bit, because remember he had a chunk of his leg out. So once you're bit, you're turning into one of the Chuds. Or
no.
Is that
Victor,
what I got out of that?
No. Victor was the brother of Miss Monroe. The other guy was the one that had the bitten leg.
Yeah.
The
Victor was
underground.
Victor had the bitten leg.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, Victor, but Victor was infected because of the goop, the radiation that was done.
Yeah, it's all. The only reason everybody's being infected is just radiation.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's his wife.
Get him out of here.
Get him out of here.
Hey, Jared, what was Boss's reaction?
He was like, and he looks down. She's like, I'm sorry. I laughed at that. I'm like. I was like, dude,
I'm not gonna lie. The whole time I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's wife's missing. Where's the urgency? You wouldn't even if you never mentioned it, you would never know.
No, you wouldn't.
Business as usual for this guy, bro.
And the funny thing, when this movie was made, it was supposed to be made more like a crime mystery film, and then everything else just started falling into place with it. So the original thing was to be like a cop drama, which. Basically about corruption, about cover-ups, and then it just started going to the whole C.H.U.D thing. But yeah, I mean, that's just still has me laughing. I'm like, this dude is so he wants to find out what's going on. He hates Wilson, but your wife's missing. You don't even bother looking for her. I mean, granted, there was no, you have to use different, landlines for phones and stuff. But he didn't care. Dude didn't care that his wife was really gone.
Leads, though. What leads did he have though?
But even though you're doing two cases out of one, you're looking for your wife, you're looking for what's going on in the sewer. The fact that,
but they didn't have cameras like we did, and
but his wife was just funny. Like her head's there, and he's like, "So what? You know what? I'm gonna go get drunk and show up on the crime scene and start yelling at Wilson because that's my best reaction to like it's your fault." But yeah, for me, I agree. It doesn't really stand the test of time. It's still a fun movie to watch. It is still a fun movie to watch. It is good at practical effects. The ensemble in this film, I agree with you guys. It was like, hey, are you guys busy for like, the next 2 or 3 months? You want to go film this? And they're like, yeah, fuck it. Hey, what's my role? Oh, you're going to be a photographer, but we're going to show you in the beginning of the film, but then later on, you'll have a bigger role, And then to top it off, the guy who plays Bosch is, if you watch Starship Troopers, that's Rico's dad, which is pretty cool. But yeah, for me, I'm gonna give it a 4 because it's still a fun film to watch.
All right. So on the journalist, the reason Cooper was involved though was because he did that pictorial. So they were trying to figure out who everybody was missing. So if anybody can actually pinpoint who had been missing, because all of a sudden with Shepard talking about nobody's been showing up. he was one of the last people who can actually ID some certain people. Bosch, I'm going to give him a little pass because, you know, yes, his wife is missing, but he is the captain and he is in charge of a precinct and he's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. So he did put aside what is going on with him.
You got to separate work and the personal life.
Find out what's going on.
But his personal, he had no leads on his personal life. He had leads on his
once the judge stuff started coming out, he goes, "Oh, okay, 1 + 1 = 2. Now we got to really figure this out." Yes, the reaction.
I'm with Joe on this one.
The reaction to when he found the wife, I'm gonna totally agree with you because I would have fucking screamed. You know, I would I honestly, you would have had to console me that I just found Adam's head. Like it's not even the whole fucking body.
That's a precursor to what's in the box. What's in the box?
Yeah.
My God, that's a good dude. That's a good another one. You never know who got their what do you call it? Inspiration from C.H.U.D.
Yeah.
And you're right, Radar. I have said C.H.U.D so many times tonight that I'm trying to avoid Chub as we keep talking.
I was gonna say that, but I don't want to.
That's why I said no.
I don't either. But you know, it's like sometimes you keep talking. I'm like, I want to say Chub, but it's C.H.U.D. So I would give this a 3.5. It's getting a 4 for brotherly love.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. The word cannibalistic not always, but as I grew older, kind of irked me a bit because, especially now we're watching it, they were not cannibalistic. I mean, they didn't eat each other. They're not cannibals. Like,
right.
I think they're like Radar said, they were just, you know, just pulling at straws, man. Like, what the fuck? But we got to come up with some kind of weird acronym. Let's see. Cannibalistic. All right, that's good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wait a minute. They're not cannibals. Why is it cannibalistic? That makes no sense. But again, it's the 80s, man. They probably forgot. No one cares about that. But somebody like me, that shit, I care about that shit.
Not back then. You did not care back then.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
C.H.U.D was a cool title. Let's rent this fucking movie.
But what I liked about this movie is that it's totally 80s. I know it's 84, but the 80s vibes in this film, incredible. But I'm surprised nobody mentioned this. This guy really pissed me off. What's up with that weird guy with the shades that worked for Wilson?
Oh yeah.
Who the fuck was that guy,
yes.
bro?
And he lost.
Why was he always smiling? That guy was creepy.
I forgot about him.
Yes.
Oh my God. I want my quarterback, man. I want my fucking quarterback.
Yeah. And this. Anyway, he always popped up at the most random time that you never saw him again.
I think he was supposed to help Wilson.
Yeah, that was Wilson's guy.
Yeah.
But
he's his killer, his hitman, his sociopath.
But
Smile.
But the film does look especially now, it looks really janky. Like I mentioned before, it don't hold up well. I'm not gonna take points off because of that though. But I don't know if it was the one I saw, but the quality, especially like during the night, it's very pixelized and a lot of it's just real janky compared to film. I mean, me and Joe, we talk about 84 being an old time. I mean, me and Joe were doing Horror Thailand. We did a movie from the fucking 60s not too long ago. It hasn't dropped yet, but that film looked beautiful compared to this as far as...
Yeah.
So it's not it's not an 80s thing. It's not an 80s thing because...
Well, it was the quality, though. I mean, it's the budget they had. I mean, here we are 40
come on,
years
bro.
later.
You think Black Sunday had a budget like this? Hell, fucker. This had quadruple the budget.
I did not.
But I liked AJ, though. Daniel Stern's character. He was always fumbling around, but I liked him a lot. But one thing I will say, when Wilson mentioned, be careful driving the vans with potholes. You got a lot of gas in there. It's going to blow up. Okay. There's the foreshadowing. What's going to happen?
There's Wilson.
Again, when I'm younger, I don't notice that. But on my rewatch, I'm like, damn, there it is. I always tell Joe, you got to look for the foreshadowing. But yeah, this is a 3.5 for me as well. It's not one of my classic films. Like I mentioned, I don't always go back to it. This is the first time I've seen it. Like, God, Joe said 25 years. Probably the same for me. I don't own it. I don't pop it in.
God dang.
I watched it because you guys said to watch it. It's not one of those films that I gravitated towards. Because again, I always confuse it with Ghoulies, you know what I mean? But as the rewatch,
because it's my first time watching it, I would watch it again.
Yeah, no. As an adult now, because again, when I watched this before, the few times I did see it, it was during the VHS era when I was younger. I didn't, I wasn't drawn to it. But now that I see it, I can see why it's beloved as a cult favorite. To me, there wasn't really no main character, right? You got AJ, you got Cooper, then you got who's Wilson's character as the villain. You got Bosch. It's like a
Lauren.
Yes. So it's an ensemble cast of characters.
Yes.
I like that. You don't get that, especially in the 80s, in an 80s like horror film. There's not one main guy. It kind of jumps from character to character. Then at the end, everything just comes together. It's a fun movie. You can't go wrong with it. You know. Anything else anyone has to say about this before we wrap it up?
Yeah, too quick. Go. You gonna go?
No, you go first.
All right, 2 quick things.
Yeah.
One of the funny scenes I didn't talk about either was when Wilson's trying to get Bosch to get out of there, and he sends his team in, and all of a sudden they run into the team of flamethrowers.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, "You son of a bitch." Yeah, my guys got flamethrowers. Your guys got cameras.
Yeah, I got a camera.
What are you going to do? I got all day to wait.
They all died.
They all died.
Oh, by the way, the gore, when they show the guy's decapitated head with the...
Yes.
The gore was pretty good in the movie, though. It wasn't a lot, but what was there, good.
Yeah, nice. And then one more thing is when the Chud got his head cut off and it's laying there on the ground, I kept thinking, man, what a dickhead. Because the way it looked, go back.
God dang it!
I was like, what a dickhead. That's all I got.
And with that, radar.
I want to say that this is kind of underrated, kind of not the movie, but what's definitely underrated is the theme for Chud.
Thank you. The music theme is great.
Slaps, dude. It slaps.
Classic.
With that being said, thank you for joining us on another episode of 3 Corners of Horror on Horror Fiend TV. I would love to thank Radar DeBoard and, of course, the 4th corner Lexi herself. We'll see both these fine individuals once again on the channel. I'm Ricky Van, JR, and Joe the Psychologist. Come back next time for another episode. But in the meantime, no chubs, chud. Stay good, stay healthy, stay sane, and most of all, stay scared.
Chubs are okay.